I'm trying to check levels. Jesse, can you talk again?
Is it recording?
Ass and titties, ass and titties. Ass and titties, ass and titties, titties. Ass and titties, ass and titties.
Keep going.
Ass and titties, ass and titties, titties. You're listening to The Good, the Bad, and the Funny, the podcast where every week we tell 3 stories, one good, one bad, and one funny. I'm your host, Jesse McIntyre, and a bad fact about me is I can't poop in public restrooms.
That is really bad.
It sucks. Because I also have IBS, so sometimes I really gotta poop, and I just have to plan my day around having to poop.
What about if you're camping or if you're like on a trip and you're like in a hotel or something?
If I'm in a hotel, that's different. Like that's a private restroom. I have gone like camping at primitive sites that just have like a hole in the ground, and it sucks. Like I try and take some Imodium before so I only have to poop maybe once while I'm there, and it's not good.
A couple things. One, it's kind of like childbirth. Like you may want to control where you do it, but at a certain point,
it's gonna come out.
It's gonna come out your booty hole. So
That's not where babies come from, Lynette.
How would you know? You've never had one.
I'm pretty sure that's not where babies come from.
So you know, there's that. Like, although you have the anxiety of it, like it's gonna happen regardless eventually. But 2, that is also my least favorite thing about you, because we'll be out like doing comedy somewhere or like at a social event that I drive you to, and you're like, oh, it's time for me to go home. I have to poop. And then I'll be like, oh, I guess I just have to fucking wrap everything up because Jesse has to fucking shit.
I mean, you also do have the option of running me home real quick, sitting in the driveway for like 5 minutes while I take
It
a
is
dump.
not 5 minutes. I cannot believe you said that.
I have a
I
medical
can't believe you said
condition.
That. I cannot believe you
medical
said 5 minutes.
Condition, okay? This violates the ADA. This is my workplace.
I cannot believe you said
I'm
5
calling
minutes.
fucking HR.
Also,
Like,
where are
at
you
least go
guys
8.
at? That's not a 30-minute drive from your house. Jesse.
I mean, it's generally exactly. It's generally like a pretty substantial drive. And yeah, I think it's some bullshit. Contests and stuff. So anyway, I'm in this group, and often in this group they will like post like children beauty contest campaigns where you can like to vote for a winner, and they'll say like, you know what to do, like run up the numbers for any little black child, and then the people in this group will like go in and like run up the numbers for any black kid. But the adverse and very funny effect of that is that I find myself scrolling through these images, and I'll get to like vaguely ethnic kids, and I'll be like, ooh, are you black? And that's kind of fucking disgusting. And I find myself, so I stopped doing it because it just kind of ended up being like an exercise in phrenology. And even in the results of so even when you like scroll through all of the comments, they'll be like, this lily blonde, you know, like this like lily white blonde child, they'll have like maybe like 1,000 likes, and then there'll be like a Hispanic kid that gets like 4,000, and then like black kids that get like 6,000, right? But even like the progression of the numbers is like, it makes me feel so fucking icky. And although I do believe that we do need to show more support, like as a black person and as a once black female child, nobody is rooting for you, and that fucking sucks, you know. And so I do believe that we need to just like show love and support for this community, but I also don't like the idea that I'm looking at pictures of children and being like, oh, what's that skull shape, how's that nose looking, is that actually a Negro child? So I had to stop doing those.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That was loaded.
Hey, Stacey, do you want to do your intro?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm your other host, Stacey Stark, and a good fact about me is so I work for Instacart, and as often as possible, I use paper bags instead of plastic.
I have something. Didn't you signed a thing very specifically saying you do not work for Instacart? I just want to clarify.
I am an independent contractor.
Yes, you are contracted by Instacart.
With Instacart. Yes.
And that was a good fact?
Because I use paper bag.
Let me tell you a tale. All right, we're gonna play this clip. It's pretty famous, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Hopefully, I've heard it before.
You
if
know
it's
what?
Famous.
Honestly, I don't know if you've heard this before. Are you guys ready?
Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. And I'm not saying people didn't naturally have homosexual feelings. I'm not even getting into it, quite frankly. I mean, give me a break. You think I'm like those shocked by it, so they're bashing it because I don't like gay people? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny.
Okay, I do know about the gay frogs.
So I want to talk about this story isn't even about Alex Jones. But that clip came out, and to a lot of, you know, hilarity memes and ridicule for Alex Jones. Because Alex Jones is a ludicrous fucking man.
Right.
However, would it surprise you to say he was low-key kind of right, though.
I hate you so
About turning the frogs gay?
Turning the friggin' frogs gay.
Okay. Wait, how can frogs be gay? Aren't they like a self-perpetuating species?
So here's the interesting thing about that. That is a lie. Wait, okay, first of all, we're all self-perpetuating species.
But I mean, like, don't they not need a male and a female?
That's absolutely not true, and is a lie told by Jurassic Park to basically make up the, like, why dinosaurs were able to come back to life. Like, that is absolutely not true.
I mean, I've only seen that movie once, and I don't remember
That
it.
is, but that is why that is a common belief. Is because of Jurassic Park. That literally is only popular because in Jurassic Park, they were trying to basically create a scientific explanation for how they were able to have dinosaurs reproduce based on the specimens that they had. And so they said in there that they introduced the dinosaur specimens, like the dinosaur biologic, like the genome, to frog genome, which is hermaphroditic, but that is not true. Okay, so we played this Alex Jones clip. It became fucking like popular because it's fucking hilarious. And it's not even like it's just funny because of what he said, because Alex Jones says a lot of crazy things, but it's also pretty funny because what he does, like after he says it, like you think I'm against gay people? It's not just because they're gay. You think I'm like, ugh, not gay people. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay. And then he goes, whoa, like bangs on his table, and it's funny. It's very funny. and so because he's such an outlandish character and it's such a memeable, you know, clip, it gained a lot of traction. But because it gained a lot of traction and it was Alex Jones, you know, people believe that it was just some other nonsense conspiracy theory Alex Jones was touting. So let's talk about the pesticide, the chemical in a pesticide. The chemical is called atrazine. So atrazine is a pesticide used in corn. It gets into the water supply because of runoff, and 33 million Americans have ingested atrazine, according to studies.
Including me?
Yes, probably.
Oh.
That makes so much sense.
Is that why I'm gay?
Yes. In 2003, actually, that wouldn't be the reason you're gay, because we'll talk about that in a
Is
second.
it the reason why Poppy's gay?
Yes. In 2003, atrazine was banned in the EU due to a potential carcinogen, due to being a potential carcinogen, and because it's a known endocrine disruptor. Now, if you don't know anything about endocrinology is the study of hormones, and basically like hormones effect on the body and like effect on gender, or gender in relation to hormones, is what endocrinology is. It's the endocrine system.
Cool.
So it's a known endocrine disruptor. It's also linked, atrazine is also linked to endocrine disruption in frogs, which creates a high levels of estrogen. It makes frogs develop feminine organs in males, and have hermaphroditism and sex changes in very low doses. So the whole Alex Jones clip, the frogs aren't turning gay.
They're turning trans.
They're turning trans or into hermaphrodites.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great clip where a scientist that researches this, that we'll talk about in length. This is kind of his story, but he's like kind of talking to a class about this whole thing. He shows a picture of this frog, and he's like, and this frog has been exposed to atrazine, and we see that this frog has a pair of testes.
Okay.
He also has, he's also like developing eggs over here, and we see like he has like, like a uterus over here, and then over here he has another set of testes, and then we see another egg sac like over here, and it's very funny to me. The scientist was like, he has like a whole party going on. He doesn't even need to leave the house to reproduce.
So wait, question: male frogs have penises and balls?
No,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily how frog reproduction occur. Like, I'm not entirely sure if they have like full on penises, but like there's different genitalia in every, like, in most species of animals. Like, only mostly mammals have like a dick,
Okay.
and balls, but they do have like female and male reproductive organs.
Okay.
So we're just gonna keep it to that base knowledge.
Okay.
Like if you see frogs reproduce, they do kind of do like a whole like topsy-turvy inning outy thing, but I don't know. I don't know if it's like, like ducks have like a corkscrew. Like, there's
Yeah.
different types of animal genitalia.
I'm
so
gonna look this up right now. I'm gonna Google frog penis.
go right ahead.
All right, you can go on with your story. I'm listening.
All right. So let's talk about Tyrone Hayes. Tyrone Hayes is the scientist that started investigating this whole thing, and who came out with the studies about all of this. And I'm just going to send some pictures to the group chat real quick, because Tyrone Hayes is the cutest, most wonderful black man I've ever seen in my entire life.
So there's just a lot of pornographic frog
Oh,
pictures.
did you not get the information you wanted from your random Google search of frog dick?
But I think I
Is
have.
this frog rule 34? Is this what we're talking about right
I think
now?
I have an idea of what it might actually be.
Okay.
I don't like that.
Put it in the group chat. I actually don't.
Make that the thumbnail for the video,
Okay.
for the podcast. This is not a video podcast.
It's more like a bee stinger type shape. You know what I mean? Like pointed.
Yeah.
I think.
Is that
Anyway, look at the images that I sent you.
Oh, was it a frog penis?
No,
Oh.
you dumb cunt. It's Tyrone Hayes.
He is dressed like a pastor.
No, he's just a very flamboyant dude. When I first watched the documentary about him, like probably like a year or so ago, I thought he was gay, but he's not gay. But he often wears
Coulda fooled
nail
me.
polish and fake nails. He has like a George Michael cross earring that he sometimes like dangly earrings he
That
wears.
sounds gay to me.
But he's married and he has a 17-year-old son. He's just a
what
gender
gay man isn't?
He's just a gender bit. He's just like here's the thing. He's an endocrinologist, and this is what I appreciate even more is that he's an endocrinologist, so he truly understands the fuckery of like sex and gender and hormones and whatever.
Man, it's
And
almost like gender's a construct.
I love that he's like a scientist who understands all of this and then chooses to be whoever the fuck he wants to be, you know, irregardless of societal standards. But let's get back to the story. So Tyrone Hayes is an endocrinologist. He's very well respected. He, in his early career, developed a test to detect hormonal disruption in various things. In the early 2000s, he was hired by a company named Syngenta. Syngenta manufactures, has a patent for, and distributes atrazine. So they hired him to conduct studies to research the effects of atrazine on wildlife, specifically wildlife's endocrine system and hormones. So they hired him. Syngenta hired this man.
Okay.
Okay. Hayes did research, which he made public in 2002. He noted that 80% of the frogs that were exposed to atrazine through the entirety of their life. So all of these frogs that he created studies for, he basically set up these studies to expose them to the doses of atrazine that were common within the water supply around, just that the plants produce their runoff in. So he exposed these frogs to atrazine at low doses common in the environment. And he noted that in 80% of the frogs exposed, they had decreased larynxes, which is Adam's apples. And 20% of these frogs developed hermaphroditism.
Okay.
So when he came out with this first round of studies, after he came out with his studies that Syngenta paid him to make, Syngenta received that research and immediately were like, well, this isn't favorable to us. So they reduced his funding. They nitpicked the data and refused to share his results with the EPA.
I'm shocked.
They said that further testing was needed as well.
Man, this is really fucked up. That's super fucked up.
Yeah, it is super fucked up because they paid him to do it. Like, if you didn't want that nigga to...
Yeah, if you didn't
want the results,
yeah, why ask the questions? If you didn't want the answer, why ask the questions?
But we'll get to that. So eventually they asked Hayes to manipulate the data that he came up with, and he refused to do so. So he refused to do so and said he was quitting the Syngenta project or whatever.
Wait, he refused to do what?
They asked.
He refused to lie and manipulate the data.
Syngenta asked him to manipulate his results and manipulate the data.
Essentially to lie about his findings.
Oh, so that they could keep doing whatever they want.
Exactly.
And he refused and said he was going to quit. So then they offered him $2 million for him to stay on and
God damn.
He took it, right?
and manipulate the data. And he said, no, I won't do that. And he left Syngenta.
Oh.
We'll get to this too. I just want y'all to listen to the story because I think after that we can have a very robust conversation about all of this because that fucking factors into everything that happens. Okay, so Tyrone found funding on his own to continue doing his research and study this. when he found this funding, continued to do the research, and was published, and he had 2 of his studies about this published. One in the PNAS, which is like the
Penis?
Prolific National Association of Sciences, which is a very like prestigious scientific journal. It takes a lot to get published in this journal because this journal is not only is it like most science journals have like a standard. They won't publish your studies unless you meet rigorous standards. But this particular journal only publishes things in niche fields of science. So this falls underneath that. And makes like 2 scientific bodies review and
Wow.
basically critique your studies before they will even consider you.
To make sure the methodology is sound and all that.
Correct. And also you as a scientist in your study has to be like given a nod for it even to be reviewed, for them to publish by someone on their board. It's super rigorous.
So you already have to be on somebody's radar
Correct.
to even okay.
And not just on someone's radar, but you have to be like a known respected scientist already.
You already have to have
meet
street
this
cred.
board of approval. So it was approved in that. And notably another study of his was published in Nature. And Nature
Damn.
is a super well-known, very much like highly regarded science journal that comes out of
The UK.
Europe. And that's
where
where they fucking banned the goddamn atrazine from being produced, and it's probably because of Tyrone that it was banned in the UK because they took his studies seriously. And I note that these 2 studies were picked up in these journals because people try to discredit Tyrone Hayes' work, and say like, oh, like you bought your way into publishing these studies.
You can't buy your way into Nature.
There's literally no way this American scientist who works at Berkeley can buy his way into influencing Nature.
They're like the
PNAS,
English
but-
equivalent of science. I mean,
Correct.
they're a big fucking deal.
Correct. So there's no way that could be the case. But his detractors say that is the case. And that's why I bring it up. After he publishes his studies, Syngenta retaliates by funding their own studies and made a press release denying Hayes' claims and stating that his science, his results could not be replicated. And although independent studies, which there were like dozens of at the time, backed up Hayes' claims that atrazine literally has endocrine disrupting effects. Not only Hayes studied it in frogs just to have a good basis. Frogs and amphibians, but specifically frogs, have a good baseline to extrapolate research upon because they share a lot of traits with varying animals.
Right. That was like a main branch for the endocrine system.
Correct.
Evolutionarily.
So
Yeah.
you can cover, reptiles and and you can also cover like mammals and like they just represent, they just have a makeup that represents a huge swath of the animal kingdom. And so that's why dude started with frogs. But anyway, in the replicating tests, not all of them were done on frogs. Like there was one that was done on I think it's called like large head swallows. And
I had a large head swallow once, and it was great.
no, it wasn't.
I
wasn't
had
large
it once
head
and it was
swallows.
terrible.
It wasn't large head swallow.
I'm sorry. Repeat what you said that.
It wasn't large head swallows. It was large head minnows.
Oh, well, that's not as good.
But it was funnier as large head swallows,
Yeah.
so I'll cut out the rest of it.
Perfect.
Well, the inaccuracy was way funnier.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it was done on several types of creatures, some of these other studies. All of these studies found that it was an endocrine disruptor and increased the estrogen levels in various, groups of wildlife, which is a problem. So, like, okay, let's get into the weeds of, like, why this is an issue. It's an issue because, one, you kind of want to remain this, like, most of the time you want to remain the sex that you were at birth, and it's weird if your genitals change halfway through, and
Except for when it's not, but most of the time.
but you not when you choose to change your genitals, when apropos of nothing,
Yeah, your genitals just change.
Genitals just change, and also we live in ecosystems. There's various ecosystems, so it is disruptive to an ecosystem if there is a bunch of atrazine being dumped into the water supply, and all of the fish so all of the male fish are becoming female, but all of the female fish are also becoming infertile. Like, excessive levels of estrogen develop reproductive organs in women or whatever. But the other thing that it does is why we use birth control is it stops reproduction. If you have elevated levels of estrogen, it cancels reproduction. So like,
Is that what's in birth control?
that is.
Yeah.
That's what birth control is. So like in females, estrogen, it's like going through fucking menopause or whatever. Like, it stops you from being reproductive, the level of it. But like, if you take like a male and you give them estrogen, then it, creates like feminizing properties.
And it can also grow a uterus and eggs.
It cannot necessarily all the time grow a uterine and eggs. But like, if you look at individuals who are hermaphrodites, their levels are off. There's a balance in your DNA to make things possible, right? Mm-hmm. So like, if you see someone with hermaphroditism, their male to female hormones are just at such a place that they have both sex
Organs.
Thank you. That doesn't mean to say that if humans are introduced to
atrazine.
If humans are introduced to atrazine, that they will actually just become hermaphrodites, but they may.
Yeah, it's worrying.
They may.
We should maybe pause use on atrazine until we know for sure.
Or until we all sign a petition saying we're okay with becoming hermaphrodites.
Exactly, which is what I think everybody would agree with. However,
I too
until such a time,
Okay, so back to this. So, like I said, independent studies in various kinds of species backed Hayes' claims that this is happening. So, back to the EPA. After Hayes, his research was published in these two other journals, the EPA stated an agenda saying that they would study this effect, right? Mm-hmm. In 2003, the EPA gathered all of the studies and create an advisory committee to review the data available and make a recommendation on the status of. So the EPA gathered 17 studies in their like initial round of studying this. They gathered 17 studies. 12 of these studies that they actually gathered, this is not all of the studies that were done. This is just 12 studies the EPA decided to pull. It was 17 studies the EPA decided to pull. 12 of those were funded by Syngenta themselves. However, only 2 of the studies they pulled found no adverse effects.
The studies
that Syngenta funded themselves, the majority of the studies that they had funded themselves, found that there was an adverse effect on atrazine in the hormones of wildlife, right? The EPA, after gathering all of these studies and doing like an internal review, stated that they found sufficient evidence to create a hypothesis stating that atrazine has an effect. But there is no clear data to make an actual determination, which is bullshit.
So that's where
we're not even into the fuckery yet. Like
the fuckery has not begun.
The fuckery has literally not begun because in theory,
well, hold on. When they tried
to,
to pay that man $2 million, that was a smidge of fuckery.
But that's not this is the EPA. We're talking about this company internally trying to pay him off to not publish his finding and gum up the
but they definitely have
investigation.
their fucking fingers in the EPA.
We'll get to it.
I'm sorry.
God damn, let me tell the damn story.
I'm sorry.
And then we will fucking talk about it. Okay,
Makes me
so
angry.
the EPA basically said, we're not, like, there is sufficient evidence in all of these 17 studies to create a hypothesis that say, hey, maybe there is like atrazine is like fucking up the endocrine systems of things. Mm-hmm. But there's not enough evidence to say, like, make a determination that it is and it needs to be pulled off the market. That's nonsense, but it's not uncommon for the EPA because what the EPA does is it's controlled by lobbyists. So what they do, if somebody comes out with science that is like, hey, this thing is fucking up the environment or fucking up health or whatever, they will often say shit like, yeah, maybe, but we can't really determine that. More studies need to be done just to give corporations and lobbyists enough time to come up with a good enough rebuttal to make it so that it's not a problem. You know what I mean?
Smoking might cause cancer, but it looks dope as fuck.
Exactly.
It feels really good too.
So, okay, so they said that additional research needs to be done. Specifically, additional research to replicate exactly Hayes' findings, which is a little bananas because, like, Hayes was, like, you know, studying frogs. So, like, if another laboratory wanted to do this research, say this laboratory had a lot of information on fish or had a lot of information on birds or whatever, they could not necessarily replicate what Hayes did because Hayes focused on frogs for his research. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, the idea that they need to specifically replicate Hayes' findings for the EPA to find that there is an issue here is fuckery. Like, absolute fuckery.
Yeah, because like a fucking burb, right, doesn't necessarily share the similar endocrine system to a fucking frog, but a person might.
But a person might, and also, if they found evidence of endocrine disruption in a bird or in a fucking, I don't know, moose or whatever, like, but like that that should be taken into account to like represent like a pattern in all of these things that we've researched. There's been endocrine disruption,
which might further indicate
this.
Issues with humans.
Absolutely. But, you know, they said that they needed to particularly like replicate Hayes' studies in order to be taken seriously and to be reviewed by the EPA. They then relied on Syngenta themselves to conduct their own studies for this disruption. In comes Jim Tosey. Jim Tosey was an old...
Great name.
I know, it really is good. It really is good.
Very whimsical.
Like whimsical. It's like Roger Stone. He's a piece of shit, though. It's whimsical in the way that it's like an old-timey... an old-timey book meant for propaganda.
Yeah.
Good old Jim Tozy went down.
He got the Jews out of Europe. Old Jim Tozy. That's why we celebrate Jim Tozy Day.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jim Tozy was a lawyer and a lobbyist, and was a lobbyist for the cigarette industry.
Son of a bitch.
And Jim Tozy created a rider in EPA regulatory legal bullshit. He created a rider called the Data Quality Act. It was just 2 sentences. And basically the first sentence stated, like, basically the whole thing is,
hold up. Can you explain what a rider is?
Like, a rider is like an addendum. So, like an addendum to a legal, like
if Congress were trying to pass a bill.
Correct. Like a rider is saying, like this is the language of this bill, but note in the corner that there's an addendum here. This needs to be adhered to. This rider needs to be adhered to when it comes to this fucking bill. And if this rider is not adhered to, or the language of this, or the specifications of this rider are not adhered to, then all of this is bullshit, right? Like, people tack on those kinds of things basically to gum up whatever fucking legislation is going through. Mm-hmm. So the Data Quality Act was a rider that Jim Tozy authored that basically said that there needs to be standardized practices for tests done by regulatory bodies. So, like, every single test that is, or every single, like, bit of research a scientist goes into to regulate, to, you know, come up with, like, research data to regulate something with the EPA or whatever, they all have to follow the same standardized test method, which is in science not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But
in practice,
in science, that's already accounted for.
Yeah,
there are very stringent, like, in science, and
it's like built within the culture. Jim
Tozy created the Data Quality Act, and citing the Data Quality Act, he specifically for this case of atrazine, he fucking comes in. Why is he still alive? I don't fucking know. I just feel like you don't get to lobby for tobacco and also lobby for pesticides. Like, just die, dude. Just die. But whatever.
Yeah.
So he comes in, and citing the Data Quality Act, it says that any research done, for atrazine has to follow good laboratory practices, which is basically a standardized method of laboratory research. So the EPA let Syngenta create the guidelines for the good laboratory practices. And those guidelines were basically
kind of like how anti-abortion advocates got to create the guidelines for abortion clinics.
Exactly. So like, those guidelines basically said that so they were able to create them, and then there was a scientist interviewed that noted that even if a lab follows good lab practices, following the guidelines to the T, garbage science can still come out of that, because the good lab practices they're saying that all of your equipment needs to be this equipment. All of your, you need to have this many test subjects. You need to, your sample size needs to be this big, but it's not actually asking you to be rigorous in the actual science, in the questions that you use and the hypotheses that you create. It's not actually asking, like, it's not holding you to a higher standard of scientific data. That's not what it's doing.
It's not asking you to adhere to the scientific method.
Absolutely not. It's just saying that you need to. I did this test exactly this way. You have to do this test exactly this way, right? Okay. So the EPA says that all studies that aren't following these guidelines that they, again, let Syngenta author, those studies cannot be considered in their final like decision about atrazine, right? So basically, they were going to throw out all these other studies. So all but one study. In all of the studies that were done about Syngenta, all of these 17 studies that they took into account, all but one study was thrown out. And the one study that wasn't thrown out obviously said, hey, there's no link. There's no adverse effect with atrazine and the endocrine system. All of the studies, because all of those studies were done before the protocols were made. So then obviously, yeah, they weren't going to find the same results. But Syngenta had enough time to, like I said, 12 of the studies were made by Syngenta. And only 2 of the studies found that there was no adverse effect. And only one of the 2 studies were found to follow the guidelines Syngenta set forward. And that is the only study that could then be replicated to prove Syngenta wrong that it did have adverse effects. Okay, whatever. So, in 2007, the EPA stated that came out with a public final decree that there was no adverse effect of atrazine on the endocrine system of wildlife, and also stated that no further studies were needed.
How
and this
convenient!
Was a final decision. In 2016,
they can just unilaterally decide. We're done here. We have decided.
Yes.
We're good.
That is what they said. In 2016, the EPA reversed this decision in a draft, not a finalized not a finalized decision, but like a draft. They said that it actually does have adverse effects and listed those adverse effects, but because it's a draft, which is editable, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not a final.
Nobody has to do anything about
whatever. Exactly. So although they came out with this statement on their website, the 2007 decree is still available. And as a matter of fact, today Syngenta still touts that 2007 study as if the EPA had not reversed that decision in a draft. And I feel as if it was left in draft instead of final published declaration of effect, because they wanted Syngenta to still be able to tout not having adverse effects on the endocrine system of wildlife. Okay. Scientists that were on that advisory board that Syngenta, that the EPA, that's what they said. We're going to review all this data. We had an advisory board that's going to, of scientists, various scientists are going to review, and then they're going to give us a recommendation to what we should do with atrazine. The scientists on that advisory board said, they all either said that the link exists between atrazine and negative adverse endocrine effects on wildlife, or that more studies need to be conducted. They were all ignored because there is no clause within the EPA saying that if they elect an advisory board to review things, that they actually have to take that advisory board's advisement. So they were all ignored. three scientists that were on this board noted that the EPA has their own lab that they use to conduct research, and it's crazy that they went to Syngenta to make to do their own research on this topic instead of just using the lab that we pay for.
Who decided
with our tax dollars
that it was okay for corporations to self-regulate?
Exactly. So these three scientists that were interviewed were also upset that they required multiple lab studies to be done to replicate Hayes's findings, but didn't ask for any lab studies to be done to replicate Syngenta's findings in the one study that they took into consideration. Okay. So Syngenta basically made a coordinated attack against Hayes. In 2012, a class action lawsuit against Syngenta and their water pollution in Wisconsin revealed that Syngenta had acted to discredit and basically destroy Hayes's career. There was a bunch of leaked internal documents. These leaked internal documents, Syngenta, in their own words, said that they were going to discredit Hayes by excessive auditing, asking journals to retract his work. They said they were going to set a trap to entice him to sue them, which is just hilarious. Like, that's just so funny. How are we going to do that? And then they were going to tap his phones, investigate his funding and his wife, purchased Tyrone Hayes as a search result and reroute it to pro-Syngenta websites and news stories.
I'm sorry. That's just... I don't know why, but that's so ridiculous.
It's so funny. Because, okay. So here's the thing. It's both very forward thinking and backward thinking. And I think that's what's funny about it, is because it's like the only reason people give a fuck about Tyrone Hayes is in relation to Syngenta and the shit that he published about you. So even if you like reroute searches of his name,
that just
he's
reinforces.
A published scientist. He'll still come up. So like that's where it's backward thinking, but it's also very forward thinking into being like, people will not scroll past the first 5.
Yeah, it's so true.
But it's also like such low stakes because he's a scientist, and like, who's Googling scientists?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody.
Alex Jones, apparently. That's it.
Okay, so they also wanted to publish a psych examination, like a psychological profile, basically, of Hayes that they like basically made up out of thin air that would paint him as a paranoid schizophrenic and a narcissist. They tried to also dig up dirt on the advisory committee that was like the EPA's advisory committee. They also like paid people to do good press for them and do like news appearances for them to discredit Hayes's findings. And there's a YouTuber, like one YouTuber, that's still on Syngenta's payroll, just paid to like discredit the scientists. This shit all happened back in 2003 to 2005, and there's still a YouTuber today who's like being paid to discredit this man.
Could you imagine what that man's life is like?
Crazy.
Just to be a paid shill for a pharmaceutical company.
It's like, dude, I don't have anything else to say about him. What more do you want from me? Okay.
That's crazy.
So they paid.
I want a story about this guy.
They paid $1.6 million to one of two PR firms that in their internal documents we found out that they were working for. But they paid $1.6 million to one of these firms to write pro-atrazine pieces in the media and do several media appearances touting the safety of their chemical. They also sent critics to Hayes' public speaking events to disrupt or detract him. Now we're going to talk about the EPA. Back to them again.
Have we not been talking about the
We
EPA?
were talking about the Syngenta's attack on Hayes, but back to the EPA. The EPA claims in the lawsuits that were brought up about this whole controversy, the EPA claims that Hayes never shared his data with them. Hayes says that the EPA visited his labs and had access to the data. Also, Syngenta had access to his data because Syngenta owned his data. Those are the people who fucking hired him. In court documents, there's an EPA rep named Ann Lindsay who states that Hayes refused to share his data. Later in that same testimony she's giving, she says Dr. Hayes published his first report in 2002. In 2003, the EPA began to collect all studies, including studies conducted by Dr. Hayes.
So they contradicted themselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Then she goes on to say, in efforts to understand the available data, the EPA visited Hayes' lab and reviewed some of his raw data. So, which one is it? Did you not have access to his data, or did you
visit his fucking
lab? Visit his fucking lab? Ann Lindsay, though, her name appears in the internal documents that were leaked in that 2012 lawsuit against Syngenta. Her name appears 3 times. One of those 3 times, again, this bitch works for the EPA. One of those 3 times in Syngenta's internal documents, it says has Ann Lindsay received her testimony? Clearly they're paying this lady in the EPA to lie for them in public, whatever. So that's basically the whole story. So I'm going to real quick do some takeaways, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about Tyrone Hayes, and then after that we're going to do takeaways from that. So yeah.
I just want to say I think we should hold off on doing final takeaways until after I tell my story because there are so many tie-ins.
No, we have to do takeaways. Sorry. You got anything to say?
Do I? Gosh. I don't know. I just feel like the whole world is bad and scary.
Yes.
And that's the only takeaway really that I have.
Just you wait, sister.
So my takeaways from this were that the government regulatory bodies have all been bought by lobbyists. And matter of fact, I don't think that any of them really existed. There's always
been.
I was
good. It's like that astronaut meme, always has been, dude.
Yes. I also wanted to an addendum to that. Regulatory bodies, I feel like mostly exist nowadays, or since capitalism really fucking skyrocketed. I feel like they mostly exist as a roadmap for corporations to know how to trick people into being on their side.
They do. They exist solely to pacify the public.
Correct. The checks and balances in our society only exist to create a guideline for subterfuge and pretend due diligence, a roadmap to protect financial interest.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I also wanted to bring up this thing that's been kind of troubling me, because we talk about COVID and vaccines and those kind of things. We have to realize from our second episode that the people that manufacture drugs in this world. Like everything is run by corporations. So when it comes to people dissenting, things that are good for us or whatever, you know, like liberals or like people on the left are always like, you fucking idiot. Like, we know that this doesn't cause autism or this doesn't cause this problem or everything is like healthy. And we use that like rhetoric. And I just wanted to point out that like maybe kinda we need to calm down because like this story shows the lengths that corporations will go to like hide the ill effects of the things that they are putting into our bodies.
Yeah, 100%.
So like even
a little bit of skepticism is
healthy. Like,
now with vaccines, like the data overwhelmingly shows that you should get vaccinated.
Does it? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't. Like, I'm going to get vaccinated, you know, regardless. Like, I'm going to do that. But
I guess the takeaway
what
should
I'm
be,
saying is,
where does the funding for the study come from?
Yes, but like, where does the funding from the study come from? But like, also, there's money to be had
So much
in manipulating data.
Yes.
And like we talked about, like that $2 million this dude was offered. The way that our economy is set up for a fucking scientist, what moral incentive do you have to not accept $2 million fucking dollars and pretend that some shit is okay? So if you have 99%, because like that's even what they put out about Syngenta, like no one's been able to replicate Hayes' findings. And there's a lot of scientists that say that atrazine has no effect on the wildlife. And all of that is for a fucking price tag. And again, I'm not saying vaccines are bad. Obviously. Like I got vaccinated, my kids got vaccinated as soon as fucking possible. But what I am saying is, what amount of information that you think is true is actually true? The same with like GMOs.
20%.
Like GMOs, you know, everyone's like, you know, genetically modified food is a problem. And like low key, it is a problem. Monsanto is like fucking problem. But you have leftists pretending as if like there's no conclusive data to show like everything's genetically modified.
Sure. Okay.
There's
I
no
see what you're
conclusive.
saying.
Do you understand
the
what I'm
truth
saying?
is probably somewhere in between.
The truth is probably somewhere in the fucking middle. And there's some shit that scientists, if it was, okay, this is one dude and one chemical that like nobody even fucking knows exists, right? And we know they paid one PR company $1.6 million. We know they paid off somebody in the EPA, and we know they paid off like several fucking scientists. They funded several scientists to basically say, hey, there's nothing here.
Sure. Okay. I see what you're saying.
For this one little fucking company. And I'm sorry. Are you fucking telling me like, what's that? Eli Lilly? What's the fucking company in Indianapolis? The pharmaceutical company.
Purdue Pharma?
Purdue Pharma.
The
Are you fucking telling me that those people
Oxycontin.
won't pay?
Oxycontin's not addictive.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like when there comes news stories where it's
family?
like where like people are saying like I don't want to get my kids vaccinated because I'm skeptical of what's in that vaccine. It is fucking so fucking rude and bullshit and like such cognitive dissonance for the left to pretend as if we should be trusting these fucking corporations. Why would we be trusting these fucking corporations?
You're not entirely wrong.
I have something to say.
Go ahead, yeah.
Have you guys seen the show?
So Jerry Blank of you. I have something to say.
Well, I don't know. You guys are just such big talkers, and I lose my train of thought a lot.
It's a fucking podcast.
It's mostly that I lose my train of thought, so I have to like insert myself. Have you guys seen the show Utopia?
No.
Have you heard of it?
Is it the one where she describe it?
Okay. Well, basically, and for anyone who is maybe currently watching it or is thinking about watching it, you know, maybe ignore or forget what I'm about to say.
No, fuck
but
that. Listen.
But like the whole thing in the show is like this guy is trying to kill off and like prevent people from destroying his plan, which is so basically there's like this virus or whatever that's going around to children. And it's like killing children, and so he's like, you guys all need to get this vaccine, and but the vaccine doesn't have really anything to do with the virus that's killing the children, because that virus is like controlled, and once people are starting to get the vaccine, he's not going to be giving them the virus anymore.
V for Vendetta.
The vaccine is fake. But
or that other show.
But what the vaccine is actually doing is it's sterilizing everyone.
Interesting.
Oh,
What would
that's
be the
Son
point
of
that?
Man.
Because he thinks that humans are destroying the world, and he wants to
mean-
create a better world by like skipping a couple generations of reproduction.
I
Based.
see.
Maybe?
Okay, so here's another, just like a couple of points, and then we're gonna talk about Hayes again.
I have to pee.
No, stay.
This is fascism.
So I also wanted to point out that due to those internal emails and those linked emails and their concerted effort to like target Hayes, I just want to like point out that shady companies that deal in bad business and PR firms have a fucking playbook. You know what I mean? Like, it is not. This is tapping into your story
So
too.
the entire
But
thing.
we'll go back.
So many
we'll
parallels.
go back to it.
I know. I'm excited.
Like they have a fucking playbook, and this is not the first time, and it is not the last time, and they rely on average people not being media literate or science literate to continue to do those things. So it's like, sleep with one eye open, nigga. Like, it's fucking scary out here.
Yo, can we put that on a shirt?
Yes. And my last part before we get back to Hayes is I just need to point out the corn of it all.
What?
The corn of it all.
What does that mean?
Guys,
What?
corn
Yeah?
is the number one produced crop in the United States.
That's a
We
story in and of
put
itself.
We put corn or high fructose corn syrup or some byproduct in corn.
Diabetes?
In not just food, like everything. Amok.
Plastic.
Plastic. Paper. In everything that you have and that you use, there is a byproduct of corn in it. So there is an incentive.
Hold up. Let me hit you. I'm sorry. There's corn in shit. Corn, like, so there's like corn byproduct and, like you said, everything. They put shit in corn that it doesn't need to go into just because it doesn't hurt. Sorry.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do they do that?
Okay, so like corn, and I am so sorry to our Native American brothers and sisters, because we took something that was like, because corn has very little nutritional value, but it is a filler, right?
It's like rice.
And
It's a
and
cultural
so
staple.
We took this thing that we were showed how to grow or whatever, and we have just fucking flooded the earth, like flooded America with it. But like most other places don't consume corn, right? So
Not like
that
that.
shit just stays internal. And we found like it's like so many fucking uses for corn byproduct. We put corn, it's in your walls. Like it's in, I'm not joking though. Like it's in fiberglass. Corn is in your car. Corn is everywhere.
People are worried about
So,
microplastics.
my
They
car
should
is
be worried
made out
about
of
corn.
corn.
It is part corn, dude. Like corn is literally everywhere. Corn has taken over the United States. Y'all are laughing, but I am so dead ass right now. Like I am dead ass. I'm dead ass. That lamp has corn. Everything has
You know
fucking
how
corn.
humans used to be 90% water, and now
We
we're
are
90% corn now.
We are corn. And so because corn is in everything, and And it is used to make us a lot unhealthier. We don't give a fuck because corn is fucking cheap. Corn is cheap to produce.
And corn syrup's delicious.
Corn, not only is corn cheap to produce, because we use it as a filler agent in everything, it makes the cost to produce goods and services fucking less. So our whole government, I swear to fucking God, is corn. is incentivized by us being okay with like corn nonsense.
Indiana Beach is full
and
of
this
shit.
particular pesticide is used for the production of corn, for the efficient production of corn.
And so basically it's going into the corn that we eat.
And it's like Alex Jones.
It's not going into the corn we eat. It's going into everything.
It is not. That's the thing. It's not even like this thing is going into the corn. Because atrazine is not affecting the plant itself. Like the pesticide atrazine and most pesticides aren't like absorbed. Like their harm isn't that they're absorbed into the plant life. Because the plant life that most pesticides target, it kills. Like they're made for a fucking reason. So like, so that's not the problem. And the problem is that it rains, right? And then it ends up in the water.
More importantly, ends up in
Mm-hmm.
fish, which we then eat. And
correct.
But we're also
mostly
90%
in
water.
the water. In the water
but
is
the issue
biggest
is
one.
my point is the issue is biomagnification.
Yes, like it's that, and also that is ending up directly into our bloodstream because we do ingest tap water. You go to a fucking restaurant, you ask for water. Where does that come from? It comes from the fucking tap. But what all I am saying is, we as a country have like an incentive to keep the corn shit going. Because that's kind of part of our economic fucking whole deal.
Imagine
everything
what
is about corn.
Imagine what we could do with all of that space of land of
That
corn
wasn't
fields.
corn. It's so much fucking corn. So like,
It's almost like homelessness is a construct.
So like, shut up. So like, so the whatever. The big deal of it all is that it is not. it is not lost on me or surprising to me that this Ann Lindsay bitch or that the EPA themselves were pro whatever the fuck Syngenta had going on
everything
because they deal in
corn.
efficient corn manufacturing, and that's literally what our fucking country runs off of. We're gonna wrap this up real quick. I just wanted to go over some highlights from the documentary that I watched.
Do the shout out.
Yeah, it's Okay Eyes Weird Stories. It's like one of my favorite YouTube channels of all time.
So good.
But the highlights, he did it like, okay, I did an interview with Hayes, and I do want to say, so Hayes had like a very spicy back and forth with Syngenta, discussing like the research and all of the things. And during that, Hayes sent them a series of emails where he was just being aggro and ridiculous as fuck. The critics of Tyrone Hayes cite this email correspondence to like basically discredit him. Because he was just being so aggro and ridiculous, and they were like, "Oh, you lack decorum, and you're not really a scientist." So Hayes said that he conducted himself this way because, for a few reasons. One, as a scientist by nature, your lab and your students are under constant scrutiny, obviously, because that's the way science should be. You should be, your science and the science your lab produces should be under scrutiny and be, able to be replicated, and people should be trying to pick you apart. That is just the nature of science. But according to Hayes, it's a whole other thing when there's a company out there specifically trying to discredit you. It's not that they're trying to do so in the name of science and they just don't agree with your hypothesis, or they think that you had like bad,
methodology
or like biases or whatever but it's like a targeted attack on your lab and your students for no reason other than profitability. And that can affect your student's career. Like after all of this shit happened, there was a good chunk of time where Tyrone Hayes did not take on new graduate students into his program because he was worried about how association with him was going to affect their careers as scientists going forward. And that fucking sucks ass because clearly Tyrone Hayes cares about science to the extent that he's not willing to compromise himself or his data to shill for some corporation. And him as someone who is completely like moral in science is rejecting students who may end up in, underneath a tenured professor who
I'm drunk. I'm sorry. That's really beautiful.
Underneath a tenured professor who does not give a fuck about the moral foundation and the importance of truth in science. And I also will get emotional, but it's not here. It's a little bit later. Hayes said he also conducted himself that way because, like, for comedy's sake, for levity's sake, because they were just going through a lot, and the company was being just such dicks that he just needed to be a dick back to them in email exchanges for comedy's 100%. Sake.
That's my main motivation in life is being a dick back.
But he also stated, and this is probably the point that I'm going to get a little emotional. He also stated that this isn't the part. Sorry. Anyway, so he also stated that he was acting fucking wild and shit to prove his point that by lacking decorum and professionalism, he still knew that the science would win out. Like, he was going to win regardless. So he can act as ridiculous as he wants to in an email exchange.
His work
whatever.
Still holds.
The work is the work, bitch. There's nothing you can do about it. I
love that. Oh, my God.
He said that while he was drafting these wild-ass emails, there was a student, one of his students was sitting next to him and kept telling him, like, send it. I dare you. I dare you to send it.
I love that. I love that shitty post grad who's like, do it.
Do it. And it's like you as a tenured professor and like every professor that I've had that like gives a fuck, like that are super interested in the thing that they do. Like I've had like journalist professors or English professors or
that's
like
all they give a shit
about. Like philosophy professors that were just like, like they are easily goaded on by their students because it's like, remind me why I'm here, bitch. Like, damn, that's exactly what I need, Okay,
Fuck the university.
So then, he said he also sent those emails because he was like, y'all categorize me as crazy. Like, you want crazy. Like, I'm gonna fucking show you crazy.
Hell yeah.
I love that too. There's a Syngenta report, like this big ass report from Syngenta that is trying to characterize Hayes as like unhinged or whatever. And in the report, they were like hyper analyzing a meeting that they had with Hayes. And in it, they say Hayes kept his coat on and sunglasses during the meeting. Hold on, because it's so good. He kept his coat and sunglasses on during the meeting. And it kept saying, is this line clean? Is this communication clean? And they were like baffled and tried to paint him as like a crazy person. But in actuality, he was dared by his students to dress up as Neo and just quoted The Matrix. For the interview, and like that's a line from The Matrix is like, is this line clean? he joked to his students that Syngenta had hired before those internal documents were leaked, he joked to his students that Syngenta had hired a committee. This is my emotional part. That Syngenta had hired a committee to figure out how to scare a black person. But when their internal documents were leaked and the contents of that psych evaluation they tried to put on him was leaked, he pretty much realized that was true. Like, they were legitimately trying to figure out how to undermine the science and the credibility, particularly of a black scientist. He was told by the Society of Toxicology and Chemistry that he was not allowed to rhyme when he gave speeches. So, when he gave accredited science talks, basically.
Wait. Was he previously rhyming a lot, doing science
No,
talks?
not necessarily. I think they just told him that on some racist ass bullshit. Like,
Okay.
hey, so
you know how black people be rhyming?
You can't get to the youth by this rhyme. So then so then he created an hour and 50-minute speech where he rhymed throughout the entirety of it.
Nice. That is so creative.
I know. So that's okay. We'll get into it, but this is the part that makes me particularly fucking emotional. So he said that one of his motivations for the way that he approached this deal with Syngenta was a Linkin Park song. And then quoted,
God. This is the most based man in America.
I know. And then he was like, all I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. He said Syngenta, as well as the EPA, would send him emails critiquing his dress and his speech and his demeanor, saying that he lacks credibility and everybody thinks that he was a joke.
Bitch, wear your fancy scarves. I don't give a fuck.
The more they told me I was in their arena, the more I forced them to be in my own. Which had the unintended effect of stirring up more awareness because I was just so eccentric and just like a good fucking... just like a dope ass goddamn guy, whatever. So
I would 100% hang out with this man regularly.
I would as well. He would be one of us. But smarter.
Can we get him on the podcast?
This shit means so fucking much to me because as a black person
and an academic, you have how many degrees?
2, but people are absolutely so quick to discredit anything that you say and anything that you do. And I love the idea of I refuse, because I am fucking smart enough and because I know my logic is sound. I'm not playing your fucking game. You gotta meet me over here, bitch. That's just what it is. He also said, he was in his back and forth with Syngenta, he said that, they tried to buy me, but it was weird because he had control in that situation. And he told them basically, I'm a tenured professor. I can stop doing research for you whenever I want to.
Did you almost say comedy?
No, I was going to say contract.
It did almost sound like you were going to say comedy.
He said, I can stop doing research regarding Astrazine or Syngenta whenever I want to. I can stop and just go back to teaching, and I honestly can't ever lose my job. But you, Syngenta as a company, you can never stop me. You can't quit me as long as I'm doing what I'm doing. I can quit you whenever I want to. I don't ever have to think about you again. But as long as I put out research condemning you and your practices, you have to engage with me. And that's where we are. So I can't be bought. And that shit is so fucking dope, dude. Oh my God. And there's something to be said. And this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. But the bravery and amount of willingness to not buy into the propaganda of the American dream it takes for you to say, no, I don't want your $2 million, to not be bought off by, this company, just like all of the members of the EPA or all of these other scientists or all these fucking YouTube shows or whatever. Like, that takes an amazing, stupid level of strength, because in order to do anything in this country, you need fucking money. Like, that like one,
think of how all the other,
I do this for them and they're like that for them, one for me, kind of Hollywood
you could do so much other
mentality.
beneficial
Like,
research with that
if
money.
I took that $2 million, I can fucking try to continue to cure like cancer or something.
Yeah.
And so it takes like an enormous amount of like bravery and moral ethics and like belief in yourself and in science, and like it just takes so much.
Yeah.
Because like it is so easy. It is so easy for us to even give you an excuse. I can give an excuse to Ann Lindsay on the EPA, and I can excuse the scientists who were bought off by Syngenta, because
that's the thing.
If
he had taken the money,
I'd be like,
would not
get
blame
it.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
how much is buried by people who it's like,
Come on, it's $2 million. Yeah,
why you
come
took
on.
that fucking money? So like, whatever. All I gotta say is Tyrone Hayes is one of my favorite fucking people to exist.
He might be
he's
my
so
hero
dope,
now.
and I love him so much. And he's saucy as fuck, and he's just he like in one, oh my god, in one part of the interview. Okay, this is actually the last thing I'm gonna say. One part of the interview, I cried real tears, because he was saying that like the science that this Syngenta lab came back with was so easily refutable that he gave it to his 12-year-old son, who easily just counted out all of like the errors within the data. And I love that so much. Like, I don't know, just being an active, engaged father, but having it taught your kid enough about science for him to just like also call out the bullshit. And that's like one of the first things he brings up in the interview. And it's just, I don't know, it's just cute. And it's like a proud father moment. Like, yeah, my son's got the science thing too.
But also,
like,
this is junk science.
It's junk science, and my 12-year-old fucking saw it. And y'all need to be fucking ashamed of yourself. And also, I love my son. Like, it's just, that's good. And that's my fucking story.
That's a great, Jesus. I cried. That's
You
the
did.
first time I've cried on this
I'm holding
podcast.
back tears because I love that story so much.
Who is it?
Okay.
Who's the white woman?
I am so interested right now.
All right.
I'm going to laugh heartily.
My white woman this week is Kate. Do you want to guess?
Winslet.
No.
Blanchett.
No.
What's another Kate?
Kate.
Couric. McKinnon.
Yes.
Because you were watching SNL.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
I did it. What do I win?
This has
Do
been.
I get to
Thank
not
you for
listen to
giving
the story?
me like a complimentary yes, even though I did not get it.
No, you didn't help at all.
This has been the toughest week of my life so far doing this podcast.
Is it because you see yourself in Kate McKinnon and it has negatively impacted your view of who you are?
Partially, but mostly because
What are you doing?
I completely fell in love with her. And I am so sad. Like, cry myself to sleep at night.
Because she's not real gay.
No,
I
she's
also
so gay.
have fallen in love with Kate
She's
McKinnon,
too
and I
gay
am
to-
more sad than you.
She's
for
too
obvious
gay
reasons.
to be in love with you because you're a man.
Too boyish.
She's just so much better than me
your
and so much
auntie?
more famous and unattainable. And also, I mostly fell in love with the 2007 Kate McKinnon. Okay, so I guess, like, partially, I don't know, the reason that I just became so infatuated is because, like, I could see, like, you know, in, like, her videos in her younger years, I could just see that like more like raw, like, you know,
Sort of edgy.
shyness and like, you know, like is it okay for me to interject myself here? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've never experienced that as a white man. And you've never experienced that as Lynette.
I don't think either of you know that feeling at all.
I don't know the feeling of not being able to interject myself somewhere. Fuck you.
That's my favorite
Fuck
thing
you.
to do. To interject
Fuck
myself.
you.
Shut the fuck up. I love interjecting. It's my favorite thing.
And I was going to save these for the end, but I realized that I should say these right up front. I found these on her IMDb page. All right. She said, people are often confused when they meet me because I'm soft-spoken and pensive. I am extraordinarily introverted. She began speaking in character voices at age 10 to relieve her social anxiety.
I did that shit too.
She said, I've been doing funny voices since I was 5. It's always been the way I communicated most comfortably with the rest of the world.
Did you guys do that shit growing up?
Do what?
Like, just like characters, funny voices, shit like that? Impressions?
I don't know. I was not. There was not room for that.
Any silliness.
Environment.
Any silliness was stomped the fuck out.
Literally, like truly.
What about you, Stacey?
What?
What about you? Did you do that kind of shit? Like, did you silly voices, like character shit like that growing up?
No,
Were you
I never.
Were you a silly little guy?
I never really began being funny around people until I was like really comfortable, which was when I was with my aunt in Missouri during the summer. I think is when it really started happening.
I don't. Okay, so I don't think that I would need to talk to your family to truly believe what you just said, because I think that you are such that you could have been funny for a while without necessarily
have been trying to be.
knowing.
Yeah, because that's kind of
or
your
being like
whole
even aware of that.
shtick. Is like you just kind of go and be you. Like last week, you picked up your own notebook and you said, "What's this book about?" And I fucking posted it on Facebook. It was fucking hilarious.
That was really funny.
And that was just a doofy thing you did. You weren't even thinking about it. I can tell. Like there was no thought put into that.
I guess I just don't really ever remember being funny or like having people notice that I was funny until I was like with my aunt.
Interesting. What age? When?
I would say like around age like 12, 13.
Interesting. Because one of my earliest memories is doing, you know, that like mobster character on the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
The mobster guy and the big dumb tall guy, and I would just do an impression of him, and it was just like, hey, put the money in the bag. It was like that guy, you know, and it would crack my cousins up. Like to the point where they were doubled over, like, and that was just a very
I would do impressions from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That probably got all of Iowa a buzz.
Yeah, for sure. I bet they were.
it was
cracking
mostly
up.
just my aunt.
Your aunt, I'm sure, loved it.
All right, this is the third and final quote here. She said, I was very serene, and I still am, until I start talking in another voice. Then suddenly I have a lot of volume and I'm frantic. But I didn't want to be one of those people who's always talking in accents in real life, so I started doing sketch comedy. So I guess there begins...
What does she mean by accents in real life versus sketch
Like
comedy?
what she's saying is like in her day-to-day life, she couldn't be the goofball, like the weirdo who just went around being like top of the morning to you.
Yeah.
And like she started doing sketch comedy to accommodate her weird inclinations.
It was an outlet for her fucking
right
freak shit.
And like, I guess, like, I'll just say,
I fucking hate improv people.
she's a very private person. So I could not find a lot.
good.
And, you know, and I think that also goes into, like, everything that, like, I just said is, like, she seems like a very quiet, private, low-key individual. And honestly, I feel like private people don't always have a whole lot going on.
You damn right.
Yeah. So anyway, she's 5'3", which is great for me.
Jesus Christ.
How
If I
old
ever
is she,
This
Stacey?
is what I'm talking about. Stacey could so easily be a fucking stalker. Because, bitch, what?
The only reason that I'm not is because I have gotten into trouble in the past.
The only reason I'm not a stalker now is because I have stalked many a time. What?
And I've been blocked on Facebook and
We
things like
can't-
that.
Good. And also, maybe. Okay.
In my
I
younger
want to
years.
ask you to elaborate but
Please
I
don't.
also
Okay,
don't
okay.
want you
Please
to
don't.
elaborate.
No,
please
please
don't.
I
don't.
will elaborate.
No, please.
I had
This
a
whole
teacher.
part's getting edited out, please.
No,
I'm gonna edit it out. Absolutely. But I also like legitimately who I am inside, and like the fact that you're living in my house. I do not want to know. I don't want to know.
I had a teacher that I professed my love to.
Oh, well, we've heard this before.
Have we heard this before?
Probably. I talk about it all the time.
I think I've blocked it out.
But no, I had a teacher that I professed my love to, and I think I probably knew way too much about her. Like I know like where she lived, even though she lived in like a different town than me. Like I knew where her house was, and I knew like what car she drove, and
Well, you're also
just everything.
You recognize that that's an issue, right? And you
I-
are currently taking steps to like you're abstaining from like
I don't
long-term
know.
dating and
Yes,
stuff.
Kate McKinnon.
I
Fucking watch your back,
recognize.
dog.
I recognize
I feel like Kate would
that's,
fuck you up. If not her, then definitely her security. And if not her security, then definitely what's his name?
Keenan Thompson.
I was
Thank you.
hoping that you would end that sentence.
I was gonna say Lorne Michaels, but
No, I was hoping that you would just end that sentence as that you think that Kate McKinnon would fuck me. So
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
that's
we
what I
got-
was
we
hoping
got-
you would end that sentence at.
Is that
It's
the,
just so
basis for?
unhealthy.
I want to know. Is this the basis for every story you pick? Like who you want to fuck?
No,
Because I didn't know we could do that. Is that
no,
an
it's
option?
not.
It's not an option.
I
And-
have not. I don't think I've felt this way about a person that I've
Oh,
talked
God.
about on this podcast. All right. Also, she's 39 years old, which is younger than previous girlfriends that I've had. All right. So she plays piano, cello, and guitar. And she has a sister named Emily Berthold, who is a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, well, are they German?
I don't know. And I also don't know where the
Austrian.
name McKinnon came from.
That's a fucking Eastern European.
It's something gross.
Fucking name.
I
fucking
just
hate Eastern Europeans.
Absolutely, they're the worst.
They're
But
sketchy as fuck.
McKinnon is more of like a Scottish.
Yeah,
Scots-Irish.
I don't know
type
where that
thing.
name
Yeah.
came from because
Sir
her
Berthold though is like Eastern European.
Yeah,
so
that
is she,
sounds like there's a lot
married
of
to an Eastern European guy.
vowels
or?
in there.
no Berthold is Kate McKinnon's actual last name.
Oh, ew! She's
Oh,
fucking.
gross.
But I don't know where McKinnon came from because it's Catherine McKinnon Berthold. So I don't. Is that her
Is
middle
it
name?
hyphenated? McKinnon
It's not.
Berthold?
It's not hyphenated.
Well,
and her,
did she change it for the Actors Guild?
I don't know. I don't know because that's like her
Because she
middle
won't
name.
tell me. I've asked multiple times.
Her name is Catherine McKinnon Berthold. No hyphens. I don't know how that came to be because
So she
neither of her
definitely
parents
changed her name for like union reasons, right?
I don't know.
I feel like that's safe to
It's
assume.
stressing. It's stressing, Stacey. I'll just drop it.
Thank you. She figured out that she was gay because of Gillian Anderson on X-Files.
Same,
Really?
but with Mulder.
Okay.
Really, David Duchovny?
Yes.
He's so fucking smart.
I want to put him in his place.
Okay.
That's really-
we have to
don't
edit
wanna-
all this
I
out.
don't even want to investigate. Please.
I want to investigate. The
okay.
truth is out there, Lynette.
No, that's
And
funny
I
because
need to know.
she said that like while she was watching the X-Files, she was having this physiological reaction and she thought that at first that it was to David Duchovny's face, but then she realized no, it's because of Gillian Anderson.
She is fine as fuck. Gillian Anderson.
I'm not very attracted to Gillian Anderson.
Really?
But like my initial gay crush
Love a good redhead.
was the fucking
Ricky Lake.
Ricky Lake and Xena and
I also love Ricky Lake.
and,
Ricky Lake's also super
and
hot.
China and wrestling.
China was also super hot. Yeah.
So it's like, hey, who am I to judge? You know what I mean?
Gillian Anderson's got that fucking fiery redhead shit going on.
Yeah, but she ain't got no lips. And again,
she
don't
she
think
doesn't have
people
no
can
lips, though.
be considered attractive if they ain't got no lips. Dude,
She
ain't got
has
no lips.
some lips.
No, she really don't. Though.
She has lips spiritually.
No, she really don't.
Yeah,
though.
I feel like she has spiritual lips.
She has like a flat booty and no lips.
Let Stacey tell her story.
Okay.
I'm drunk.
All right, so Kate McKinnon did an interview. It was like Brunch with Bridget, where they're like in a bed together, and she started talking about Gillian Anderson, and then she like got up close to the camera and she was all like, you know, Gillian Anderson, like, I understand, like, you had to get hot and, like, grow your hair out and, like, go blonde, but I just want you to know that you were totally perfect when you had short red hair, and so if you cut your hair and dye it red again, you should call me. But if you don't do that and try to call me, I probably won't pick up. And then Gillian Anderson, I guess, was gonna like be in like a movie or something with her. My research didn't go far enough to find out what that was that they did together, but they did something together. But Gillian Anderson didn't know really who Kate McKinnon was, other than like seeing her do some stuff on SNL, and so she looked her up, and she saw like the like best of Kate McKinnon clips on YouTube, and she found this video, and so she was like, it was like, it felt like they were like on a Skype call, and like Kate McKinnon was just like in her face saying this stuff to her and like declaring her love for her, and then the next day she had to go to work with her.
Oh, that's awkward. That's super duper awkward.
Yeah. Well, it was.
I mean, it's kind of cute.
I think it's so great because when Kate McKinnon made
like,
that, she was so much younger.
It's great from Caitlin's perspective, right? Because she is living the dream of like us, of like getting to work with somebody like Maria Bamford, right? Like that's a dream, right? And she went as far to make a thing. Obviously, you didn't do that, but
yeah,
like,
honestly, this is just my worst nightmare.
and,
Like, honestly,
it's super
what
duper
you
cringe
just said
though,
is like,
which is also humanizing. And
Right.
That's fucking beautiful.
So you can understand how I fell in love with this
Sure.
human, with this
No, I get it.
person.
No,
I get it.
No,
Who
it's
has-
a cautionary tale.
It is 100%, but that's what's humanizing. You fucking schmuck.
But like the video, like if you watch it, it's not really like cringe or anything. Like she's being funny in it.
Right, but fucking Gillian Anderson seeing that, right?
It's about
that
her.
is what's cringe.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
I think like the thing is anyone can really identify with that. It's like being a person who.
I think that's everybody's worst fear.
Like
Well-
if Chad Michael Murray was like, oh, who's Lynette and Stacey and Jesse, and he Googled his name, and it was me calling him like the best cause for the Nazi party, and
Yeah.
it'd be fucking awful.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. That's my biggest fear.
I don't know.
Idris Elba was like, oh my God, who's Lynette? Who's Lynette?
But again,
and it was
the
like,
fact
I hate
that
him because of his fucking accent.
the fact that that's horrifying is what humanizes Kate McKinnon in Stacey's eyes.
Yes.
Because like that again, that is also Stacey's worst nightmare, reasonably so.
And she also has said like if there's
No.
anyone out there who's able to take that off of YouTube, that would be great.
But also,
think
you know what?
Stacey's-
Shoot your fucking shot.
Okay.
Like,
no,
what
because I
if-
think
hold up,
I
no.
think
What
Stacey's
if
whole
that had
thing
resulted?
is that this bitch is weird, like I'm weird.
Maybe
And
this
that's
episode,
what the
Kate
fuck
McKinnon,
this is about.
maybe one day
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon will hear this episode
Exactly.
of this podcast.
That's what the fuck this bullshit
and
is
want
about.
to fuck me.
Absolutely, I'm not playing your fucking game, Stacey
Kate McKinnon,
Stark.
please do
I'm
not
playing
fuck
your
Stacey
goddamn
Stark.
game. I will be part of your fucking
I won't let her.
Kate
I will stop
McKinnon
Kate
courting
McKinnon.
conspiracy.
Do not ever tell me you're dating Kate McKinnon.
You would shit your pants. You would be so happy for
Honestly,
me.
SNL kind of sucks.
Okay, but
Oh
Kate
my God,
McKinnon is the
what?
only good thing about
This
SNL.
is so stupid. This is so stupid. Finish telling your story before
Fine.
I cuss Jesse out.
All right, she has a cat that she found in the alley behind a pizza restaurant,
What's the cat's name?
and it was called Nino's Pizza, and so her cat's name.
That's a crazy name for a cat.
no, that's the name of the restaurant. But her cat's name is Nino Positano after the pizza restaurant.
Yeah.
All right, she went to Columbia University and she graduated in 2006 with a theater major. While she was in college, she had a homeless friend named Cross who would hang outside of a grocery store.
She's just like me.
And she see
You
humanizing.
have a homeless friend named Cross who hangs outside a grocery
It's
store?
Stacey. Stacey is Cross.
Oh, oops.
Stacey Cross, Seven Pelt Stark.
And she would buy him fruit, and he would also
buy Stacey
carry her groceries for her. While she was in her senior year at Columbia University, she had a friend who was all like, "Oh, there's this gay thing you need to try out for."
What?
And so she
Did
went.
she make the team?
She went to the audition, and that's how she got on the Big Gay Sketch Show on Logo TV. She was.
It was actually, I thought this was like a friend of hers trying to get her to experiment sexually.
No. He was like.
So she was
there's
she
like
already
a-
out at this point?
Yeah, and he was like, there's this gay comedy sketch show
Okay.
that you need to do.
That makes a lot more sense.
And she did it because she's gay and a comedy sketch artist.
Okay. When did do you know when she came out as gay?
She was a kid. She I don't know like the exact story, but I know that she was crying and her mom was like, "What's going on?" And she was just like blubbering tears. She's like, "I think I'm gay." And her mom was just like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, be whatever you want."
That I had a very similar experience coming out as an atheist, which I know sounds very dumb, but at the time, my mother and I, we were reading the Left Behind series for teens together, and I was like, I think I'm an atheist, and my mom was actually pretty cool about it.
Being an atheist is different than being gay.
Obviously.
Can I say that
Obviously.
it was revealed due to my MySpace that I was atheist and bi.
It makes
to
a lot
my
of sense for
family.
you that the atheist was like
It
fucking.
was way more rough about
Yeah.
the atheist thing.
All right. So she was on the Big Gay Sketch Show for all 3 years that it ran. After that, she did shit in New York, including the Upright Citizens Brigade sketch comedy.
Love Upright Citizens. I can't say it either. Love it, though.
Usually unpaid.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Um,
They should pay their performers.
she did a lot of videos with this girl Julie that she was with in the Big Gay Sketch Show. Like they did like a lot of videos when they were like doing other stuff, and in one of them she said she's never been on a date. She makes out with someone and then she's in a relationship for 9 months, which I found very relatable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're kind of a whore.
As like a relationship whore
You get around.
of relationships.
You have had a lot of relationships in the not very long time that I've known you.
Yes.
I'm not slut shaming. I have no problem with the sex. It's the emotions
Yeah,
that I'm not okay with.
I am an emotional whore. That is for sure.
That is true.
She started SNL in 2012 and became a series regular in 2013. And in an interview, she said that she only does impressions of people that she likes or like truly admires. But the whole time while she was doing that interview, I was just thinking about the time when she did an impression of Robert Durst,
Who's Robert Durst?
a serial killer.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I wonder if that's like, I don't know. You know, the thing in like, or maybe this is just me. There's this thing in like me doing comedy where like I'll do comedy for, it's like inconsequential comedy. Like, oh, I'm just doing comedy as a favor to like, but it's like a 3-minute appearance and it doesn't fucking matter. Like, I wonder if what she's saying is like, I only do impressions. Like,
Like what she chooses.
of my own volition,
Yeah.
do
Oh, yeah, 'cause it's not just her deciding what
like
she
that
does
shit
on
doesn't
SNL.
count. You know what I mean? They need you to come in for this quick Robert Durst impression. That doesn't fucking count for like
That's a really good
me
point.
saying that like the characters that I practice and whatever, like that's like
That's
those
their
are only
comedy,
people
not
that
my
I-
comedy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I definitely agree. And like, I feel that way too. But it's just like my experience hearing her say that. I had this other thing in my mind
Yeah.
where I'm like, you don't admire the serial killer that you did that's just where I was at.
Maybe she can relate though, because we're like Robert Durst was live mic'd in a bathroom and he told on himself, and like maybe that's just some hijinks she thinks that she would be privy to, which makes absolute sense to me
I can
based
see
on
myself
her
doing
body
that.
of work. But like particularly Kate McKinnon, because she's like so like low key and awkward or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I could definitely see her being like, I killed them all.
She could probably identify with him in a different way.
In a different way.
Yeah.
In a different way.
She said that her favorite character that she's done is Jeff Sessions, because she has this thing that she can do with her lip where she was like, when am I ever going to use this? And
Her
that's
Jeff Sessions impression
It is
was
good.
very good.
It's really good.
yeah.
Damn, honestly, all this SNL talk makes me want to watch.
She also did
Rewatch
Giuliani, right?
The Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, her Giuliani is fantastic.
It makes me want to rewatch the Brett Kavanaugh
Oh, God.
fucking SNL sketch after his hearing. Because Matt Damon does such a fucking bang up job as Brett Kavanaugh, and everyone that's playing like senators and whatever is just like fucking. That's just peak performance.
I'll have to check it out.
You've never seen it? It's so good.
My SNL experience has been very all over the place.
That might be the best SNL has been in like.
I hate. Shut up. Like, because you really are calling for me to cuss you out. I cannot stand conversations about when SNL was good and when it wasn't. It's always been fucking hit or miss.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
just putting on that many shows at a time and like finding the comedic through line with your cast or whatever, like that shit takes heart. It like takes time to like fucking, like solidify your fucking team. But I still feel like every fucking season there's gold within.
I just kinda feel
I
like-
think it's so hack for comedians to be like, this was when SNL was good. Like, shut up.
I just kind of feel like
up.
SNL's never been good, and the only redeeming quality has been Weekend Update.
That's so stupid. That's also really stupid.
That's the
Weekend
worst thing I've ever heard.
Weekend Update has routinely been like one of the worst, as far as output's concerned, one of the worst.
Yes,
parts.
however, but when it hits super duper
Like
hard.
the rest of SNL, when it hits, it fucking hits, and when it doesn't, it fucking doesn't. That's like the
created a
nature
monster.
of the goddamn show.
I created a monster.
It is like one of my like legit biggest fucking pet peeves. I hate talking to comedians about SNL because
I'll never bring it up
they're
again.
annoying.
It's almost like talking about SNL
They're
with
so
comedians as a
annoying.
construct.
Okay. She was the first openly gay woman to be a cast member on SNL.
That cannot be. All right. Yeah, that's probably true, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Rachel Dratch never came out, but in my heart, Rachel Dratch is gay.
Who is the one? What's his name?
Chris Kattan.
Dan Aykroyd.
Doesn't strike me
Two
as a gay
very
woman.
different gay women.
He does not strike me as a gay woman.
He's a super duper gay lady, man. Have you tried Crystal Skull vodka?
I'm sure I've had it.
Tastes like pussy.
All right.
All right, cut that part out. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't at all.
I can't imagine where someone like would be drinking a vodka and it tastes like pussy and they'd be like, "Oh man,
This is great
I'm gonna
vodka.
call this
Continue.
Crystal Skull."
Like pussy. Pussy only tastes good when it's pussy, you know?
Right.
Like replicating the flavor
So
is
true.
not going to.
So unnecessary.
Absolutely unnecessary. I want nothing else I consume to taste like pussy
No.
but pussy.
No. And even when it's
Hell yeah,
pussy,
brother.
I only want it to taste a little bit.
A tiny bit like pussy. And
Yeah.
then the rest of it, like nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
You want a little bit of funk. A
It's
smidge of funk.
like it should just be recognizable as vagina.
Mild
Yeah.
funk.
And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm eating a vagina.
You never order the Diablo sauce. You want, you want the mild.
Fun fact, I have always gotten very good reviews.
Gross.
Anyway,
So,
I don't like that.
Absolutely not. And I also
Can we kick Stacey off the podcast?
also much like the EPA, I need several like more research is needed.
Yeah.
I don't agree.
And
You're
if-
Syngenta and
And if you're not on the payroll, we will not accept your research.
Nah, you're Syngenta and you are definitely producing your own studies.
And you're-
like, absolutely not.
Your
ma'am.
cunt is atrazima.
AstraZeneca.
Astrid, did I fuck it up too? Is there an S in there?
It's atrazine.
That's what
You
I
said
atrazima.
like an acne medication.
Or an alcoholic beverage.
in order to conduct your own studies, you guys would have to eat my vagina.
That
which
is absolutely not.
Let me finish.
I
me
refuse.
finish.
That
which
is not how the only accurate studies can be
I
conducted.
have eaten plenty of vaginas
of
in my day.
knowing how my vagina tastes. You guys would have to eat it, which I am not going to
No,
let either
I-
of you do.
no.
I've
First
collected
of all-
anecdotal reports.
First of all, there is anecdotal evidence, but also there's just like standardized testing of the pH balance
Yeah,
and
for
acidity
sure.
of your
Yeah.
cunt, dude.
Let's just
I don't. Nobody has to fucking eat it to know that it's like that. It's
give us a sample of your vaginal lubricant.
stanky.
My point is,
Stanky
neither
strunk.
of you are going
That's
to
why
eat
they call her Stanky
my
Strunk.
vagina. Neither of you can eat
Then
my
why
vagina.
the fuck did you bring it up, Stacey?
Because
Like,
you guys
I
were
don't-
saying I was wrong.
I
and I was
don't-
like, the only way for you to know.
No, ho, originally.
And you will never know.
No, bitch. Like, it's so funny to me that you're, like, on this hill dying. Like, y'all will never eat it. But it's like, that was never in my fucking purview. You were the one that was like, actually, I've got good reviews. And it's like, bitch, okay, but probably not.
Prove me wrong. I will give you a list of every single person who has tasted it. And you can go ask them yourself.
Hey, how does this relate back to Kate McKinnon?
It don't.
It doesn't.
Ew, that's so
Also,
nasty, dude.
What
Like,
do you guys think my vagina tastes
and, like, I don't believe anyone who agrees to taste Stacey's vagina. What?
You don't agree that
Yeah.
anyone does?
I don't agree
with
with
anyone
like,
who has the bad
like-
decision making
like
to agree
the
to do
moral
Moral compass?
fortitude
Yeah, for
of
sure.
anyone
No
who
s-
agrees
no-
to go down on you.
that. No ethical backbone.
And it also is like, it's like, for who are you doing that for? That's a whole man. Like, why are you?
Okay, this is
Can't air any of this.
no. You're going to hear all of it.
That's
It's
going
amazing.
in the podcast.
This is the meanest you've ever been to me.
And
and
that's
it is
not
just
true at
making
all.
me-
Look
No,
at
it
look
is-
at Stacey being a white woman about
This isn't even the meanest that Lynette's been to you today.
Absolutely.
In my heart, this is the meanest she's ever been to me. However, it makes me so giddy.
And that's why Kate McKinnon will never sleep with you.
That's why I have so many friends.
That's exactly
That
why
is
she
literally
will.
The effect that I have.
That's so true.
That keeps me
When
having
you call me a
friends.
fat piece of shit, my heart just fills with joy.
It's just like me talking shit. They're like, "Oh my god, it's my turn." Oh, me. She's doing.
Because if she talks shit, that means she loves you.
That is true. I do love you dearly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck
Thank
up.
you. And also,
bitch.
that's exactly the reason that Kate McKinnon would fuck me.
Okay. Anyway,
This is
whatever.
problematic.
It's like honestly, we need to have an intervention. It's fucking weird.
It's weird for me too.
I also have a mild crush on Kate McKinnon.
But it's
But
mild
this
for
is
you
like
because you're
fucking-
a man and you know that it'll never
It's not
happen.
even that. This is weird.
But like you're also a man, and it's never gonna happen. So,
You're
I'm
more
uncomfortable.
problematic about this than I am. A
bitch, you
cisgendered straight.
brought this is you.
man.
You brought this up.
But I am also uncomfortable. I had no choice. I had to. I had already committed
She's a
to
damn
this
lie.
project.
Yesterday, Stacey and me were sitting at the table drinking coffee and smoking a cigarette, and Stacey was like, I just want to talk to you about the story that I'm going to do because I'm so emotional about it.
I really
but
feel
I can't talk to you about it right now.
Be able to talk about our stories. That's fucking dumb. What if I need your help
I
coming
don't,
up?
it doesn't fucking matter.
a
I
spin?
don't care. What I'm talking, we're honing in on Stacey's fucking mental psychosis
It's the emotional
right
arc. I got you.
That, if you don't say, okay, Stacey, if my soul is not satisfied and I don't find out new and interesting information about Kate McKinnon during this goddamn story, you're banned from telling non-narrative tales just about white women forever.
There's
more.
a lot on the line here, Stanky.
No,
So you better make this fucking worth my goddamn while.
You don't have to tell me. I already know. All right. In an interview, she said if she wasn't an actress, she would be a carpenter. She's also very interested in plumbing and electrical.
I think if I were gonna pick up a trade, it would be anything but plumbing because poop.
Anyway, Kate McKinnon said, all I ever wanted to do in my entire life was be on Saturday Night Live. And yay for her, she did it.
Good for her. We
Yeah.
love it when somebody sets a goal and achieves it here on
Definitely. For sure. But she quit after 10 years because she said her body was tired.
That's also 10 years is an amazing tenure.
Doing a show every week, that's like, it's not just recording one night. It's like going there every day and
it's
writing
not like these,
and like
some of
coming
these
up with
sketches are
things.
being edited up until the night they air. You know, so
Every week.
10 years on a show.
10 years.
Keenan is somebody like Keenan Thompson is an exception to the rule. 10 years is a fantastic tenure at something like
Yeah.
SNL. You know.
Yeah. And it's just an amazing thing to like just decide to leave.
Yeah, I've
You
had
know?
enough. I've done what I set out to achieve.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful for sure.
Yeah.
I love that for her. All right, so I'm going to weave you a tale involving U.S. corporate-backed coups, war crimes, murder, and a whole lot of bananas.
Okay. All right.
All right. In 1823, John Quincy Adams convinces President James Monroe to enact the Monroe Doctrine, essentially saying that all of the Americas were closed to any colonizers. But this was not
Wait, what?
yeah, we'll get there.
Wait,
we'll
hold
get
on.
there.
Wait.
This, however, was not put into use until 1898 when Cuba requested the U.S.'s help in their fight for independence from Spain shortly after the U.S. won the Spanish-American War. In the following years, the U.S. became deeply entrenched in Cuban politics and economics. A lot of people thought that the U.S. should annex Cuba. However, then President William McKinley said, nah, we could colonize better than that, and instead established a provisional government under the American military, under an American military governor, and Congress passed the Platt Act, allowing the U.S. to act in Cuba and allowing the U.S. Navy to establish a presence in Guantanamo Bay.
Okay, excuse me.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out that shout out to McKinley, one of the presidents who no one ever talks about anything that he did during his presidency. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Like,
I didn't even know really who the fuck is McKinley. I really don't know.
I just remember him from the rap that we were taught about the president's name.
Well, did they talk about Chiquita Banana at all in that rap?
No, it was just the list of the president's name.
That's it.
Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Van Buren. You know
No.
that rap?
Wait, there were 2 Adams?
Yes.
Wow.
There's the John Quincy, and then wasn't it just like John Adams?
Yeah, I think so.
It was like John Adams and then John Quincy Adams or something
Wow.
like that. Yeah.
I bet the Quincy guy was a...
I bet he could fuck. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. With it.
Look,
Maybe.
so my mom's name is Nikita Williams, and
Uh-huh.
my sister's name is Nikita Juanetta Williams, and I'm gonna tell you which one of them currently fucks, dude.
Is it your mom?
It's the latter with the middle name. The middle name's fuck.
Where was I?
I don't know. Okay, all right. Cuba. That's
Cuba?
where we were.
Platt Act.
Cuba and yes.
Platt Act. That allows the U.S. to legally act in Cuba, right? It also allowed the U.S. Navy to establish a presence in the Guantanamo Bay. After establishing political and economic reform, the U.S. pulls out of Cuba in 1902. However, political violence breaks out between Cuba's 2 main political parties, the moderates and the liberals, in 1906. Leader of the moderate party and sitting presidente, Tomas Estrada Palma, was accused of using hired thugs to ensure his victory. The Liberal Party, who had been opposed to U.S. influence in Cuban affairs, then called on the U.S. to ensure a fair race. But Teddy Roosevelt said, nah, we're good. Sorry.
Okay, wait. So what
Yeah.
you're saying is, I just need to break
Go
this
ahead.
down.
Yes.
So basically, at the beginning of the story, the United States was like, "Hey, we're not into colonizers
Correct.
and them encroaching upon other people's land."
Yes.
So then, when Spain tried to get into Cuba, they were like, "Hey,
Spain was already in Cuba.
okay, so basically, Cuba's trying to get independence for
Right.
itself."
So basically, the U.S. said, if you're already if you've already have shop set up here, that's fine, but no new colonies in the Americas. Right.
I see. Okay, I see. The Americas, not
Yes.
the Americas, the United States.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Any other questions?
No, I just needed to put that in layman's terms.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. The situation gets a lot worse real fast.
Wait,
yes.
pause. Just to catch us up to
Yes.
speed. So, Tomas
Yes, he is the leader of
was-
the moderate party.
is running basically
pro-U.S. corporate interest.
Cuba person,
Yes.
not Spain person.
No, Cuba.
Cuba
He is-
person.
Yes, he is. He was. I think he was appointed by whoever the American military governor was.
Okay, and so who is he running against? Like they're trying to get a fair election, but
I
like,
do not have who he was running against here,
Okay.
but it was a more liberal party who was opposed to U.S. intervention, essentially.
I see.
And he was running on a pro-U.S. intervention platform.
Okay,
That
so
was sort of the
then
big thing.
who asked? I'm sorry for asking.
No,
all these
go
questions,
ahead.
But that was very information heavy. So then who asked the U.S. to ensure a fair
I'm
election?
assuming
Was it
whoever.
Tomas?
No, it was the leader of the Liberal Party because Tomas, the leader of the Moderate Party, was accused of using force to
I
dissuade
see,
people
I
from
see.
voting for the Liberal Party.
I see.
That is when the Liberal Party starts amassing an army of around 24,000 people against the moderate. And now the moderates begin calling for U.S. intervention. But again, our boy Teddy said, fuck that, not until the Liberal Party demilitarizes itself, which they refuse to consider unless the U.S. would step in.
I see.
So it's Mexican standoff.
I always wonder about the
Cuban standoff.
organization of these groups. Like like just working in a corporate environment, I'm always like, you're saying people amass like a group of 24,000 people.
This is
Fucking
pre-internet,
that's
too.
what I'm saying. Logistically, how?
Yeah, it's-
I can't organize 12 people to meet in room 502B.
I cannot wrap my head around that.
That's insane.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely fucking crazy. However, things get worse. Eventually, Roosevelt has literally no other option but to step in. And in September, they send in the U.S. military to force the resignation of Palma and once again establish a provisional government. Elections are held again, and the Liberal Party wins, and the U.S. pulls out in 1909.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess to the United States' credit, they tried to prop up a guy sympathetic to them. It didn't fucking work out.
And they kind of let sleeping
And they were
dogs
like,
lie.
okay, well, let's back out.
Unfortunately, that trend does not maintain.
Yeah.
Because in 1914, the Panama Canal is built. However, Haiti had a close relationship with Germany at the time, and this was in direct conflict with U.S. corporate interest. Haiti's like right there along the Panama Canal.
Right.
The U.S. began making plans to interfere when political violence broke out against the ruling class in Haiti, which was primarily French. It was a French colony. But by July 1915, during a populist uprising, U.S. Rear Admiral Caperton led 5 companies of soldiers to take Haiti. He did so without receiving any orders. And then despite having committed various war crimes, Woodrow Wilson retroactively approved the occupation. A month later, Caperton appoints a puppet into the presidency and forced through a treaty that effectively made Haiti a U.S. colony.
Yep.
Caperton then spent the next year killing rebels trying to oppose the U.S. occupation. And then in the interest of time, not wanting to repeat myself a whole bunch, I'll just say that they followed this playbook all over the Caribbean. They started invading, stomping it out any populist movements, and then propping up pro-U.S. corporate interest leaders. In 1900, while the U.S. is doing shenanigans in Cuba, a bunch of U.S. produce companies merged together to form the United Fruit Company. The United Fruit Company then starts buying up land in Guatemala. By 1901, UFC owns 1/5 of all available farmland in Guatemala. And they also now control all the railways, radio, and even deliver the mail there in Guatemala. They're starting to act a lot like a government. In fact, they even begin to establish their own towns, right?
And that's another thing that's like just so fucked up about how colonialism works when it comes to capitalism too. It's like because I mean, if you're in a foreign country and you see these capital interests come into your country and basically take over all of the shit, you're gonna feel like, okay, well, like the United States is invading my country or Britain is invading my country. And then the United States or Britain's like, hey, we have nothing to do with that. That's fucking Chiquita Banana. And it's like, bitch, nah, nigga. That's like,
100%.
That's you, though. That's you because you're letting your people do whatever the fuck.
Well, not only that, but when they start, as we'll see, whenever they start to rail against that, the U.S. just calls socialism and then starts dropping bombs. So they also, they don't just stop at the mail. They establish entire company towns. Like they're the landlords that own your house. They own the shops that you buy your necessities at. And they don't pay you in money. They pay you in credit for those things, right?
Yeah.
That's what a company town is. The UFC even had its own navy in the area that they referred to as the Great White Fleet, which is hella appropriate, at least. It's very on the nose, and I respect that. In 1928, Colombian United Fruit Company employees go on strike. Their demands are simple: a 7-day work week and to be paid with actual money. So the UFC turns to the United States and says, think of all the lost profit. I think these guys are commies. So the U.S. turns to the Colombian government, says, do something or I will. And then on December 5th of that year, the Colombian military moves in and kills everyone, an entire town, man, women, and children.
Fucking Christ.
Nearly 2,000 people died.
Jesus.
In this later, man, this is fucked up. I cried when I was reading about this. It would later become known as the Banana Massacre, which is kind of a goofy name for such a terrible, awful thing.
I just want to say it's so neat, the world that we live in, where we would have something called the Banana Massacre.
Yeah, I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, I guess.
No.
It's a crazy, twisted world.
It is, for sure. It gets so much worse, though. In 1950, in Guatemala, by 1950, UFC owned 50% of all of the land in Guatemala. Not just farmland at this point. We're talking the entire island. And here's the kicker. They weren't paying they were paying literally no taxes on it. Because when they had the land evaluated, they used their own private evaluator.
Oh my God.
And had it evaluated at essentially nothing.
Yeah.
So then Presidente Jacobo Arbenz noticed this, and he noticed that a lot of the land wasn't being used because UFC was just snatching it up to prevent their competitors from buying land. And so he wanted to take this land back and redistribute it amongst Guatemalan people. And of course, UFC does what it does. It went, crying to, I think, who was the president at the time? I don't have that. But they turned to the U.S. government and said, please think of all the dirty commies and their cultural Marxism, senpai, uwu. And then...
Did they really say it like that?
Yeah, just like that.
Stacey will not be tolerating any of this nonsense this podcast, guys.
They didn't just stop there, though. They also hired an entire PR team that was spearheaded by Sigmund Freud's nephew to create a newspaper in Guatemala, to create news stories tying Arbenz to a communist movement, which they then took to U.S. Congress as proof that Arbenz had ties to communism. Oh, it was Eisenhower. So then Eisenhower sent in the CIA.
Okay.
And at this point, the CIA has their shit down to a fucking science, right? So they just do their thing. They find a group of rebels who will take their fucking money, and they start to train them, right? Then they take all of the radio waves that's already owned by UFC and starts blasting anti-communist propaganda. And at that point, they've sufficiently stoked outrage against or amongst the Guatemalans against the government. And eventually the rebels move in on Arbenz in 1954. And Arbenz was forced to step down, allowing for the installation of Carlos Castillo Armas.
Ooh,
I nailed that one.
They're like, actually, his name is
Actually, his name is Steve.
Armaze. You fucking asshole.
And Arbenz lived... He had to flee Guatemala, and he lived on the run until 1920, where he was found drowned in a bathtub. Which,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's like, what led to that?
Yeah,
I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder.
Fucking good grief. God, I hate our country. I do.
Armas was the first in a long line of U.S.-backed puppet leaders. And during the coup, casualties were low, less than 150 total deaths, which is... It was like a decade of fighting. Like, that's crazy.
But this is like after they wiped out a whole town of people.
Yes, absolutely. I think more importantly, though, it was essentially the death of any semblance of democracy in Guatemala. Their democracy has not been the same since. It also sent a message to the rest of the Caribbean where if you try and take back control of your land, if you try and take back control of your labor, you're going to get the boot.
Yeah.
And that's it. Now, you're probably thinking, Jesse, this was all really, really bad, but this is in the past. I mean, UFC doesn't even exist anymore. Also, this story isn't very funny. And you would be right, except for about the first part.
Funny.
I did have funny. I absolutely had funny. You'd be right that this story isn't very funny. However...
Somebody slipped on and just wiped out all of the U.S. military.
I did not even talk about that. That's a whole thing. So
what
is that? How they was that what the Banana Massacre was? They had all these people slipping on bananas.
Yes, Stacey. Yeah, that was the
like
Guatemalan
lemmings off a cliff. They
just led them straight into a field full of banana peels. Those banana peels are still there to this day and occasionally kill people. It's really sad.
That's not how banana peels work.
But at the 1902 World Trade Fair, when bananas were introduced, right? They were by far the most popular exhibit. which is really funny because the phone was also introduced that year. But people were like, "Fuck Alexander Graham Bell, I'm about these bananas."
Yeah, have you seen Alexander Graham Bell? I would agree.
No, they were absolutely right.
And also the first phone looked like a lot of work. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
It had all of these
Had
goddamn
a crank thing. What's up with that?
and they had transmitters.
Yeah,
like ladies
definitely.
sitting in booths being like, "Oh, you want to connect to this."
The
Had to
Marvelous
pass a
Mrs.
law.
Maisel was
Wait, what?
the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was a phone transmitter.
That's true.
Oh.
They also had to pass a law in Chicago, I think in the early 1900s, because people were just throwing banana peels on the street. And these were like the extinct bananas, which were a lot actually slippery. And so like people were slipping on banana peels and like cracking their skulls open. It was a real problem.
I often think about like, you know, there's a lot of talk about third world countries and they're like, oh, they like shitting holes and it's dirty over there. But it, like the way that America lived until fairly
Very
recently,
recently.
where they were just like, you know, where trash goes out the window.
This is for like the last 100 years, you know? Yeah, definitely.
They also had that on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the revolution of trash pickup.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was.
Thank God for the mafia.
It took it, but that's the thing. Other countries didn't live that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like other third world countries, quote unquote, aren't that fucking nasty,
No.
dude. Like America's was
Disgusting.
particularly fucking disgusting.
Disgusting. In 1978, UFC was purchased by a man named Eli Black. Not long after that, Eli Black fell from the 44th floor of a hotel balcony. And a week after that, it was found that he had been paying off officials in Honduras. And so not long after that, he fell off a balcony.
Was that the funny part?
But yeah, wait, there's more. That was the funny part.
Okay.
The company rebranded again in 1984 to Chiquita Banana. And in 2007, it came out that all through the 90s and through the early aughts, Chiquita Banana had been funding right-wing paramilitary Colombian death squads.
Oh.
And that is the story of why I don't eat bananas anymore.
Dude, yeah, that shit is so fucking awful. Like, legitimately, it's fucking awful. And wasn't that part of like then they named the clothing line Banana Republic?
Yes, that I didn't even talk about that. Yeah, that's where the term Banana Republics comes
as
from.
a nod to that. And it's
Yes.
like, then you had all the hottest kids from high school smelling like cologne, pimping out these fucking terrible outfits. Oh God,
A whole lot of
disgusting.
beige. I remember a whole lot of beige.
Yeah, I remember a whole lot of those fucking shell necklaces.
Oh yeah, the puka shell necklaces.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Should
I'd wear a
have.
puka shell necklace today.
Yeah. Well, that's
I
nobody
bet
asked you.
I'd look pretty good with my backwards cap and my long hair, and my puka shell necklace. I'd fuck me.
Let's wrap this episode up, though.
Yeah, let's
but I
chit-chat
wish
about the
I could
bananas.
remember what my story was last week
Well, I mean,
because
if you just
because
edit
it
the
tied
podcast, you'll
into
know.
your story.
Oh, it was about the turn of the freaking frogs gay. It was Alex Jones.
turning
Oh,
the
yeah.
friggin' frogs gay.
Yeah, and how that company went out of its way to bury the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Much like the United Fruit Company, because that great white fleet that I talked about, right,
Mm-hmm.
was used almost exclusively as a it was also used to threaten,
Yeah.
people trying to, take back the means of production. But it was primarily used as a sort of cruise line to take people on these corporate-sponsored trips, not unlike the one Temu just got in trouble for, where they would have these idyllic coastal villages producing bananas for the fucking company, and everybody's smiling. But in reality, it's like 7-year-old kids losing their fucking limbs in the banana dunking machine, and
It's just
it's fucking terrible.
insane. It's not even insane because it's the world we live in, and I'm so aware
Happy
of it.
Labor
but,
Day,
like,
by the way.
Yeah, I'm so aware of it, but it's like the things that we allowed corporations to do to other countries, and then for the right wing in America to be like, so fucking anti-immigrant. And it's like all of these people's problem. Look, there's a quote that I heard a long time ago that I think extends past what the subject of the quote was. But the quote basically said, there is nothing wrong with the black community that the eradication of white supremacy will not correct.
Word.
And I believe that for every other fucking country. Like, there is nothing wrong in South America that the eradication of all of the things that the United States did would not correct. So, like, these places weren't this way before our interference. And you can't expect a government to stabilize itself if you take all of their fucking resources, profit off of all those resources, leave those people in abject terror and poverty, and then you're like, figure it out, and communism is bad. Like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way. That
Definitely.
shit is so fucking disturbing. Ugh.
I just want to say that's interesting how your story seemed like more funny and his seemed more bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You guys
I
need to
don't
work
think
on
that Jesse really cares. He just has a story he
I
wants
just
to tell.
I find a story I want to do, and that's kind of the story.
Why are
doing.
you talking like you're from the East Coast today?
I don't
What
know.
is
I do that. I slip into that sometimes when I feel a little sassy. You've been listening to The Good, the Bad, and the Funny. The Good, the Bad, the Funny is hosted by Jesse McIntyre, Lynette Thomas, and Stacey Stark. Intro music by Jared Scott. For more, you can follow us on Facebook at The Good, the Bad, and the Funny. And if you have any suggestions for stories you'd like to hear on the podcast, or any stories about some squirrels you saw, you can email us at goodbadorfunny@gmail.com. Everybody say bye!
Bye.